A mother's heart is a patchwork of love. Twilight trotted behind Princess Celestia. She had to hurry to keep up with the princess's long stride, but it was a small price to pay for more time with her. When they came to a stop, she tried not to make it sound too obvious that she was breathing hard. They had been walking for what felt like hours, although it was probably no more than 30 minutes. Princess? Celestia stepped aside, allowing Twilight to see a pair of thick doors inlaid with a gilt metal that swooped and curved in such elaborate shapes it wasn't immediately obvious it was locked. Even from where she was standing, Twilight could feel the pulse of protection spells. One of the first things Celestia had taught her was to catch all undue invocation for her own magic and basic protective spells. She wasn't as good as creating shields as shining armor. Even making small ones sapped her energy and tired her out quickly. Wards, on the other hand, she couldn't do that at all, though she could only tell where some pony else had laid one. These wards were dripping off of them. Celestia noticed Twilight's hesitantly. "Are you frightened?" she asked kindly. Twilight drew herself upward to her full height, which wasn't actually very tall. She barely reached Celestia's knees. "Of course not. You said something you have important to show me, and so am I. She searched for her mind for the most impressive word that excitement did. "Galvanish." Celestia raised one eyebrow at the corner of her mouth, quirking like she was holding a smile. "Galvanished?" Twilight's ears flattened in embarrassment. "Did I misuse that word?" The smile turned into a chuckle. "No," Twilight sparkled. "I commend you on your efforts to use a wider vocabulary. Self-improvement is never a bad thing." Twilight swelled with pride. It seeped away as she looked again on the doors. "Why are we here, Princess? Why did you bring me down to the mountain? Why is the mountain hollowed out here like this? Did you do it? Did the ponies from Canterlot dig this? And where is here? Have you—" Celestia laughed and held up a hoof. "So many questions, one at a time, remember?" "Sorry," Twilight pawed off the dirt. I'm just so... She searched for the right words to communicate her excitement, but none came. "I'm sorry, I'm just galvanished." Celestia touched her horn with the lock, and which flared back into the flamets like ribbons spontaneously rolling tight into little spirals. The door swung open, and she had led Twilight light through another corridor. This one smelled like compost, salt, and something sweet Twilight couldn't identify. "We're here because I want to show you something. This is the part of the mountain that's spacious and secure. It's lined with the enchantments to strengthen the walls, so it won't collapse even though it's bigger than most natural caves. The caves here before there was ever in Equestria. These mountains are full of naturally occurring passageways that go right through the rock. No pony, not even me, knows where they all are, though I have had a long time to explore a lot of them. This cave we are going to now was made a long time ago by a dragon looking for its century sleep. Afterwards, it was used by ponies as a place to protect themselves during conflict. And actually, Canterlot was built on top of it. Right now you're walking on where your distant ancestors walked." Twilight's eyes rounded. "Conflict? You mean war? This was a war shelter?" There had been several small wars in Equestria's history, but certainly not one she knew would have been necessitated as shelter for this cavalier. What made this one so special, Celestia would bury the country's capital on top of it? "It has been many things and had many uses," Celestia replied. "Now, however, it is home for the menagerie." "Menagerie?" Twilight heard a capital letter, as if she had been drawn in the air by a sparkler. They had reached to the end of the corridor, which opened now to a wide space like a viewing platform. She was about to ask more, but stopped to gape at the scene laid out before her. All this had existed beneath her hooves. Dozens of pink domes sprawled out throughout the massive cavern, far bigger than anything she could have imagined. The word cave barely described this place. It was an underground palace, studded with stalactites that hung from the ceiling and stalagmites jutting up from the floor. Floating lights illuminated everything so well you could easily think you were still above ground in the sun. Several stalagmites had been what looked like doors and windows on their sides. The domes effervesced, signifying that they were made from magical energy. As Twilight watched, a unicorn from the color of melting butter came out of a stalagmite and went over one of the domes. He wore a uniform and had his mane tied back so it didn't fall to his face as he bent his head to examine where the dome met the stone floor. Frowning, he touched his horn in one spot then the other. The surface turned a brief rolling purple where he had touched it before settling back to an even brighter pink. He turned to and called to something in the pale blue Pegasus in a similar uniform who had exited the stalagmite behind him. The Pegasus grabbed the unicorn around the waist and lifted him up to touch his horn to other places farther up the dome. "Custodians," said Celestia. "They maintain the spells while I'm not around to keep everything ticking over." "Did they make all these?" Twilight asked, gesturing to the domes. "What were they?" "No," said Celestia. "It would take more power than they have. Each of one of these is not a single piece of magic, but a collection of interlocking spells. Enchantments and glamorous crises crisscrossed into a unique pattern. Think of them like a giant patchwork quilts. The same basic design, but each one individual. Your mother makes patchwork quilts, doesn't she?" Twilight wrinkled her nose. Her mother had tried to get her interested in sewing quilts as practice on how to use her magic for delicate tasks, but Twilight had found it so boring. She was much more interested in reading about equestrian history and the obscure magics that have been lost to time and dusty libraries. "Did you make these things, Princess?" Celestia nodded and descended up the narrow staircase that cut into the rocks. Twilight, however, trotted after her, eager to see such an extraordinary magic up close, but intimidated too. The amount of power needed to create something so huge was mind-boggling. Just one dome was bigger than the whole house, and she had shared with her father, mother, and brother. As she got closer, the roots of her mane prickled, and her horn started to hurt, like some pony was twining it with a rubber band. "Are you all right?" Celestia asked, seeing her wince. It's like static," Twilight explained, "or when your ears need to pop." Celestia understood immediately and stopped. Twilight had came to a stand beside her, grateful they wouldn't be getting any closer. The dome was beautiful and painful, but you're still new to your magic. When you've been at school for a while and have gotten used to casting spells beyond those you use every day, you'll develop a resistance. At the moment, you're still very sensitive to the fluctuations of magic around you. Can't you feel that? I can, but it doesn't bother me so much." "Really?" Even though they had gone no closer, the backs of Twilight's eyes were starting to ache. She tried to blink the feeling away, but it did no good. "Someday you'll be the same," Celestia assured her. "You think so?" "I know so. You're a very special filly," Twilight sparkled. "With your natural aptitude for magic, you'll be able to do a great many things most ponies could never dream about." Twilight forced herself to be worthy of her teacher's confidence. She stopped blinking, even thought of her left her eyeballs feeling gritty and dry. Instead, she pointed at the dome. "What is this thing, Princess?" "That's reality a bubble." "What?" Celestia smiled. "A pocket of space both bigger and smaller than our own. Imagine a bolt of cloth drawn right tight and straight, but with a small portion twisted up and fastened at the bottom with a tie, so that it is at once part of the cloth and yet separate from it. That is a twist, a reality bubble. It can only exist within the magical barrier you see here. If the reality inside the barrier and outside of it, here with us, were to touch, then the magic would be broken, and what's inside could be capsulated back into the world. Each bubble is enchanted to be bigger than the inside than the outside, and to contain things that would not exist out here. Twilight gaped up at the dome. It was really huge. Why would it need to be? It needs to include the entire territory, which can be anything up to 50 miles in diameter, and might include such things such as a lake, a forest, cliffs, a lagoon, or even part of the ocean, along with animals and plants that stopped existing in our reality centuries ago. Why? Twilight Sparkle, do you know what a menagerie is? Twilight searched for her memory. She had read about them before, but always sounded like zoos. It's a place to keep exotic animals in captivity? Well, this menagerie is one difference. All the creatures in it can no longer live outside the world. Her expression became sad as she started up at the dome and the others, as if she almost wished they were all there. At the lair of the last of their kind, the ones whose territories don't exist anymore, or who hibernated when the world changed around them and they no longer have a place in it. Outside this place, they are hunted or relived because of what they are. They have no peace, no more of their kind, no family. She trailed off, lost in thoughts. Twilight just could guess it. So you put them there? I did. Why? The first time, because he asked. The second, because he could not ask, and I could not watch him die a stranger in his own territory. The third, fourth, fifth, sixth, she trailed off. Sometimes I could ask permission. Sometimes the creatures were able to tell me if they wanted to falsely reality instead of a true one. Sometimes, however, it was to protect my land and those living in it. Protect us? Yes. Before I created this place, Twilight Sparkle, I thought the ends justified my means. It would to protect the ponies of Equestria. I was willing to use magic in ways I hate to remember now. Twilight remembered reading an old lyrical poem written under hundreds of years ago, which made a reference to the spell's stone and the mare of the sun. She wondered whether it was what Celestia was talking about. Then something happened that made me rethink the way I protected this land. Destruction no longer seemed a defendable act, even if it was keeping Equestria from harm. I instead choose to contain a terrible threat, and it is a decision I have repeated ever since. Twilight wondered what kind of terrible creatures would merit such elaborate magic from the princess. Her left hind leg edged backwards until she reminded herself that she was being brave. The thought of all four legs together so sharply she nearly toppled over, and covered the stumble of the question. Why would you keep the dangerous animals? Every creature has a right to life, Twilight Sparkle. It's not for you or me or any pony else to decide whether something should exist or not, simply because we're frightened of it. But if it's evil, dangerous doesn't even mean the same as evil, Celestia said sharply. When Twilight recoiled at her unexpected tone, she softened it. Dark creatures have a right to live, the same as we do. What if something more powerful than us suddenly decided we have no right to live and wipe us out? Would that be fair? Nothing could ever do something that terrible with you around to protect us, Princess, Twilight said staunchly. Celestia chuckled. My little stalwart student? Twilight fought hard. Stalwart meant loyal, didn't it? She swelled up with so much pride she thought she might burst. Celestia looked back at the dome. The day I changed my ways, I was given the advice to kill something dark. The ponies who told me to do it were convinced it was the only way to deal with it and save every pony. They were frightened of what it could do to them. I couldn't do what they asked, and when I can't do it now, killing isn't the only or even best way, Twilight Sparkle. It should never be anything but a last resort. Remember, as with all things, it isn't committing an act that will linger, but the consequences and memories of committing it. If you kill any creature, good or evil, light or dark, you must live with the consequences and regrets that come after, and those are far worse than fear. If you have a good heart and pure soul, so for you the consequences would ring far deeper and echo far longer. Per princess? Twilight got up at her mentor. Maybe it was a reflection from the magic of the dome. But Celestia's eyes looked shiny, if they were filled with tears. "Are you okay?" Celestia opened her mouth to reply, but something buzzed up in behind them. Both of them turned to see a ball of white floating light heading towards unerringly in the direction from the mouth of the corridor. It halted in front of them and hovered, shining even more as a voice emanated from it. "Princess Celestia!" "Grimoire?" Celestia said in surprise. "I told you I wasn't to be disturbed this afternoon." "Princess, we need you in the university archive." "All right this moment?" Celestia glanced at Twilight. "Can it wait?" The light ball dimmed and dropped a little, as if the magic kept afloat was also lessened. It returned to a full brightness a few moments later. "Not really, Your Majesty. One of the enchanted collections is loose and causing havoc. Apparently, the hinges on the book cage rusted through, and no pony noticed it until it was only hanging by its lock. Oof. Ow. Gilmore, are you alright?" "Yes, Your Majesty. One of them just knocked my hat off and gave me my ears to a few paper cuts. Princess, close to 100 enchanted books are free. Not all of them have been catalogued yet, so we're not sure they can do or whatever they're capable of getting off campus entirely. Our unicorn professors are trying their best, but ow, darn it, that one broke my reading glasses." Celestia's brows drew together in a frown. She glanced down. "I'm sorry, Twilight Sparkle, but it seems we'll have to cut our visit short today." It's okay." Twilight tried to keep the disappointment from her voice. It wasn't easy. She knew she had failed when Celestia bent to nudge her aside gently. "I promise we'll resume this another day. You know I look forward to our time together." Twilight wondered whether they would resume it. Magic school was tough and far more demanding than of her brother's stories had prepared her for. All summer Shining Armor had liked to talk about all the cool things she did once she learned that started. An energy bolt archery classes, and knockback spells that could flip a full-grown pony on its rump with just a flick of your horn. He had neglected to tell her about the long hours of homework, or number of times she would have to recite the same elementary incantations over and over before her teacher said they were right. Twilight was a perfectionist and a natural scholar, but even she had her own limits on how many times she could be spelled a toilet to self-clean before she wanted to drown herself in it. She had lived for the time Princess Celestia could spend with her, and she promised her that, if she did well in school and got into Canterlot University, Celestia would truly be her teacher. Until then, these unofficial improv lessons were the bright spots that got her through the slog. "Princess," the voice from the light ball waited. "What is it, Grimoire?" Celestia raised her head to concentrate fully. "What's happening?" "Your Majesty, the escape books, they're... What are they doing?" "They're eating my manuscript." "Excuse me?" "My opera. My magnum opus. They are tearing into pieces and eating like a pack of flying wild dogs." "Are they all in one place?" "Yes, they seem to be the taste of my genius." "Oh, get off, you horrid things." "Listen carefully. I'm going to tell you a binding spell to secure them until I get there." Twilight shuffled in her hooves. She wanted to listen to Celestia's instructions, so she had a new spell in her repertoire, but her ears flickered as something else caught her attention. She soon turned her head and keeping one eye on the princess, but listening for the noise again. "Stop that!" yelled the light ball. "Leave my precious work alone, you ruffian reading material." There it was again, a thin sound that slipped into Twilight's ear like silk sliding over steel. She turned towards it, tilting her ears. Was somebody else down there? Could it be one of the custodians? Something about it made her feel sad and want to comfort whoever was making it. She looked back to Celestia just as the princess stamped her hoof against the floor. "Grimoire, ignore them and listen to me." She was so busy calming down the brawling Gilmore that Twilight didn't feel able to ask her to identify the sound. Celestia clearly had other important things to think about right now. Even so, Guilt gnawed at Twilight when she considered ignoring the noise. The thought she couldn't tell what it definitely wasn't good. Maybe some pony was hurt and was calling for help. Maybe she would investigate and come back to fetch Celestia if it was important enough. It was easy to slip off unnoticed. Part of her knew it was wrong and that she would wait by Celestia's side, but the noise drew her. She had to stop a few times to figure out which way to go next. She walked between the domes. There was no pony else about. Even the two custodians she had seen intentionally were nowhere in sight. The domes themselves were opaque, probably to contain the creature's privacy. Thought Celestia had called it the menagerie. It was the place clearly not meant for ponies, gawking like a regular zoo. The care that had been taken made Twilight feel bad about ever visiting a regular zoo. How did the animals there felt about her staring at them like they only existed for her entertainment? How did the familiars at school feel when they were left in the crochet way where every pony could see them? She resolved to fetch Spike out and take him someplace nice as soon as she could. He was just a baby dragon after all. The noise grew closer as she walked by. Eventually it resolved itself into a series of notes that strung together in endlessly repeating pattern. There were no words and it wasn't quite a melody, but there was something hypnotic about it anyway. Twilight trotted over from the dome until her horn fizzled in response and she could hear the sound louder than ever. She looked up at the pink expanse and took several steps nearer until the pain became too much. Abundant magic rubbed against the senses like a cheese grater, forcing her to stop. She could go back to Celestia, she thought, but her hooves did not move. She couldn't go back. Not yet. She wanted to know what was making that sound. No, she needed to know what could produce something so hauntingly beautiful. She never usually cared about music, but right now it filled her up like an overflowing cup of syrup. She took a step forward, pain jabbed until she backed off again. Sitting to catch her breath, she was irritated that she couldn't just go up, find out what was inside and be done with it. She was good at finding things out and answering questions. And how dare this answer not be available to her? For such a silly reason, she just had to suck it up and push through past the pain. That was what Shining Armor said when he was running laps to be as fast as the Earth ponies in military school. You had reached your limits only if you accepted the way your limits. Twilight took a deep breath to compensate for the pain and started forward again, gritting her teeth. Every root of air burned dully, like toothache that had spread beyond her mouth. She hesitated, but the sound indulged and rose in volume. It was so gorgeous that she could barely breathe, or maybe it was because the magic affecting her. She panted with effort to gamely took another few steps. It was like trying to break through a wall of flypaper. She actually felt the magic sticking to her, tense strength pushing her back. She shoved against her with her own horn. She needed to see what was making that beautiful sound. She needed it to more than to breathe in her lungs. Her horn glowed briefly in response to her need. She recognized the wash of her own magic energy from long hours practicing for school, but the sensation of it was getting out of her control, took her back to her entrance exam. Celestia had taught her a simple reversal spell that day, and first all the many things she had shared with her youngest student. The princess face flared in Twilight's mind, but more pressing was the raw powder exploding from her horn as their magic carried through the final steps to touch the surface of the dome. The pink rolled aside like the mist across the sea. The dome's surface grew mushy and transparent, allowing her horn to sink like in a hot knife through butter. Though she could water stretching it far in every direction, much farther than the back of the cave. It should have been touching Twilight's hooves, but the softening surface of the dome kept it contained. A cluster of rocks sat a dozen feet away, tiny wavelets sending up a spray each time they ran up against them. Atop of the rocks sat a pony with such long mane, it almost completely obscured of his body. Twilight only recognized it as a pony when it twisted its face to her. She almost gasped. She had never seen a pony so beautiful in her all life. Even Celestia could only come only a poor second. This pony's features were both soft and sharp. The muzzle was too delicate to be a stallion, but the lower jaw was too deep to be a mare. Its mane shimmered when it moved, as if every strand was a different shade of green, blue, or gold. Hair cascaded into a waterfall onto the rocks, tangled and dumped, but looking more stylish than any other rich fillies at school who frequent hairdressers every other day. It reminded Twilight of seaweed. If seaweed could be so beautiful, it could make your breath catch. For a moment, Twilight met the strange pony's gaze. The pony looked startled, gold eyes widening. The beautiful sound had stopped as it closed its mouth and stared left and right, which should only mean comical if the pony else had done it. When it looked back at Twilight, it tilted its head down to one side, which made its face shift colors too, blue to purple to green. Then it slid off the rocks and swam towards her. Twilight could only see this because it had scales, not fur. Its neck and chest flashed and wrinkled under the water, almost as if captivating as the song. It started singing again when its face broke the surface. She was rooted to this spot as the strange pony powered over water. Twilight had never tried swimming herself, but she was sure no pony could swim well or that fast. Moments later, she spotted the long, sinuous fishtail working behind the strange pony. A tiny voice inside whispered that she should run away, but it was so quiet and the song was so wonderful. "Come to me," it sang without words. "Come to me, come to me, come to me." Twilight blinked. A bead of water ran down her horn. Could she smell sea salt? She had to been able to smell that before. It ran into her eye and the stinging brought her back to herself for a second. She should get away. She should run away. Why weren't the hooves moving? Why was she just standing there waiting for the pony to rise out of the water in front of her? For a moment, the fish pony just stared and sang right at her, like a snake charmer with a cobra. Twilight then got a second good look at the gills on its neck and the webbed protrusions that fanned out around its face in place of ears. It then bared up sharp silver teeth at her and lunged towards the barrier. "Twilight!" Blinding the white consumed everything. The song ended in a shriek that made Twilight's head reel. Her world had dissolved into snatches of images and sounds. Celestia's golden shoes hitting the ground in front of her. The sweep of the princess's wings being yanked away from her from the dome. The pink magic sucking at her, trying to keep hold. Some pony was calling her name as she fainted. She awoke to find herself in her own bed, staring at her own ceiling, with her own duvet wrapped around her. For a moment she wondered whether it had been a dream. She would have liked this scary, beautiful fish pony to be a nightmare. Her horn was still cold and felt damp, even though it was dry, and when she touched it with her hoof, she sniffed her hoof and it smelled seawater. Not a dream, then. Twilight pushed back the covers up, stopping only when the room spun. She waited until it had stopped and then gingerly rolled out of bed. Her hooves made no sound on the carpet as she crept up the door and eased down the handle. The moment it was ajar, she could hear the voices coming from downstairs. She considered going down, but then she realized who was talking and what they were saying. She crouched to listen. Didn't realize it would be so hazardous. Twilight's ears perked. That was Princess Celestia's voice. The princess was here in her house? She had never been able to visit before, and it had been an entrance exam when she first asked to take Twilight outings and give her the odd lesson, and spoken to her parents only once then to Twilight's knowledge. At school function, when Celestia was the guest of honor, and all that first-year unicorns had sent up the sprays of confetti with her levitation magic. Well, what did you expect? I can't believe anyone would be so stupid. Twilight gasped at her mother's tone. This had to be a dream. No pony ever spoke to the princess like that. Evidently, her mother realized this at the same time, because she followed an outburst which was so much softer. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to." No, said Celestia. "You're quite all right to be angry. I should have kept a better eye on her. You entrusted her safety to me, and I let you down. It is me who should be apologizing to you." Twilight's mother made a grunty noise, the kind of sound she usually makes when biting down on harsh words. She generally was an even-tempered pony, but with a son like Shining Armor and a daughter like Twilight, even though sometimes she lost her cool, all throughout colthood, Shining Armor had loved to play at knights and princesses and cast his adoring little sister as damsel in distress. Twilight would do anything he asked, which sometimes letting him project a magical shield around them both, while his friends pelted him with mud balls, and sometimes meant letting him levitate her up for a tree for him to rescue. More than once he had fought up a rescue so daring and heroic, it put the premature white streaks in her mother's purple mane and tail. "Twilight Velvet?" Celestia said cautiously. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Twilight's mother said tightly. "I think that's the untruth. Forgive me, Princess, but when you brought her home today, she was so still. I thought the worst of it, and it was just about to stop my heart. From the bottom of my own heart, I am very sorry. Will you accept my apology?" "How could I not? You're the princess, after all." "Being a princess does not mean I should be automatically forgiven when I make mistakes." More grunting noises. "You may have something you wish to say?" "You've been incredibly kind, taking my daughter under your wing, so to speak. Since she started her scholarship, as you know, I went to Magic Academy as a filly too, so I understand what a privilege it is for you to provide her with the experiences and opportunities that you have. We're not." Twilight's mother paused, as if she didn't want anything to say what she did next. "We're not a wealthy family, as you know, so her schooling alone was a blessing, and on top of that, you've been so kind to her and us. I think you're agreeing to let Cadence babysit you is a fair exchange. It gets lonely for her in the castle while I'm working, and she gets bored easily." Twilight remembered the pretty pink pony who babysat her for each summer when she came home, so Cadence spent a lot of time away from Canterlot, sometimes attending schools in parts of Equestria. Sometimes on special functions she groaned out when Twilight asked her to describe them. This year Twilight would have marvelous stories of her own to share, and was looking forward to seeing Cadence again, even though she really didn't need a babysitter anymore. "We enjoyed having Cadence over," said Twilight's mother. "She's a lovely girl, and both Shining Armor and Twilight Sparkle adore her." "Well, what else do you want to say, Twilight Velvet?" She took a deep breath. "I'm not sure the benefits of my daughter spending time with you outweigh the costs of the field trips, the advanced spells, before she's even mastered the basics in school. Did you know that she injured herself trying to spindle too much magic on her horn after you showed her how? She was having difficulty with the basic spell casting her teacher set. Your daughter is a very gifted filly, where most young unicorns have trouble summoning their magic wood to their horns at all. Her trouble is that she can summon it easily, not control it once it's there. I was only trying to show her how deep to keep it around her horn and readied for a spell without letting it leak out. Yes, and that worked so well today." "Are you saying you no longer wish for me to tutor her?" Yes, I think that is what I'm saying. It's not that we don't appreciate what you've done for her, Princess, but Twilight, she doesn't need that kind of help that puts her in harm's way." Twilight's whole body went cold. Before she could react, however, Celestia was speaking again. "Twilight Velvet, please understand that putting her in harm's way was never my intention. You took her under her mengerine, where you keep dangerous creatures. You didn't need to take her there. You chose to. If that's not putting her in harm's way, then I don't know what is. If you weren't putting her in harm's way, how did she nearly get eaten alive by a siren? Rin then." When Celestia finally answered, her voice subdued. Twilight had never heard her sound that way before. It was even scarier than the thought of never being taught by her again. To her mind, Princess Celestia was the most intelligent, most talented, most amazing pony of all of Equestria. Intelligent, talented, amazing ponies didn't sound like fillies being told off by their kindergarten teacher. "I am sorry, Twilight Velvet. I only want her to understand something it took me much longer to grasp." "And what's that?" By contrast, Twilight's mother sounded angry and a little tearful. "That evil exists in the world. That magic is delicate, and messing around with it can be fatal. That dark things deserve protection too. Why? It is not for us to decide whether something lives or dies. Pony feathers. Excuse me, Your Majesty, but when something is threatening my foal, it certainly is for me to decide whether it lives or dies. But the choice is Twilight or another kind of monster. Pick Twilight. Maybe most of the time when you believe is true. I admire you for wanting to preserve every life you can, no matter who or what life it belongs to. But I'm not you. Twilight Velvet. That the world can't exist in perfect harmony all the time, Princess. Bad things happen and no pony is perfect. That causes conflict and disharmony. I understand that dark things aren't necessarily evil, but that doesn't mean they're good either, and it definitely doesn't mean they should be anywhere near my daughter. Sometimes you have to make choices that you don't want to make, and sometimes those choices are between worse things in the world, but you still have to make them, and you have to live with the consequences anyway. Because the consequences of not choosing are even worse. Yes, dark things deserve protection too, but I'll hold up my hooves and admit I'm a hypocrite. Because if those dark things threatens my loved ones, I'd do whatever it took to stop it. I'd die to protect my children, Princess, and I'd kill to protect them too. I'd do it because I love them, and love is the most important thing in the world. But it's not perfect either. Nothing is. Even love means making sacrifices. Everything has a price and a cost, and the one I would have to pay in exchange for teaching my daughter, and perhaps not getting there in time to save her next time, is just too high. By the end of her speech, Twilight's mother was breathing hard. Silence resonated for several minutes, and then the kind that is in nature of light usually came right before a thunderstorm. You'd make several good points, Twilight Velvet. Celestia was so quiet Twilight could barely make out the words. I'll admit I have clung to many of my ideals and resolver the might called stubbornness. It has been a long time since every pony spoke to me the way you have. I understand. If you want to rescind her scholarship to the academy. Her place there was not content on lessons with me. Will you tell Twilight Sparkle of this, or should I? No pony has to tell me anything. Twilight shouldered when she opened her room and skidded to the top of the stairs. At the bottom, having to be leapt from the chairs in the living room. Her mother and Princess Celestia looked up at her in surprise. Twilight Sparkle! Celestia sounded shocked to see her. But I enchanted your sleep so I can get some rest, stuttered her mother. You shouldn't be awake for another 2 hours. Twilight cantered down the stairs, which was a bad idea, and they were too steep for her short legs. She tripped over herself at the bottom and canoed to the back of the sofa, skidding it forward a few mere inches, just the grooves of the carpet. Righting herself, she stalked towards her mother, filled with righteous indignation. You can't make the princess stop teaching me. Twilight, I love my lessons with her. I love them even more than regular school. But you always loved school, her mother protested. She was right, but Twilight is in no mood to admit it. Instead, she grabbed. All we do here is boring stuff over and over. I actually learned things with Princess Celestia. You can't take that away from me. You just can't. Twilight, please listen. I've listened to you enough. I've heard everything you said. You were really rude, Mom. You shouldn't talk to the princess like that. Do you know all she's done for Equestria? She's really, 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 really important and picked me to be her student. She isn't mentoring anyone else at school. If she doesn't want to teach me anymore because you were mean to her, I'll hate you forever. It was a stupid, harmful thing to say. Twilight knew and regretted it. Her words by the moment they passed her lips, and her mother's face crumpled. Twilight Sparkle, said Celestia. That's enough. Twilight stared up at her. Celestia's mane and tail flowed just the way they did. At that moment there was something extra regal about her bearing. She was every inch of royal pony, a powerful alicorn whose magic was far more potent than any pony in Equestria, if not for the whole world truly knew. Under her scrunchy, Twilight's fury withered away. Princess, I'm sorry, she mumbled. Celestia shook her head, causing her mane to flutter above the mantelpiece and the selection of trophies and other commemorative items her mother had just put there. It's not me you should be apologizing to. Twilight looked at her mother. But she was trying to make you not come to see me anymore. I couldn't bear that, princess. I love her lessons. As do I. But the fact is that she is your mother and has your best interests at heart. I may be a princess, Twilight Sparkle, but I will not deny her wishes in that matter. She is your mother, and I will not cause any distress to fulfill my own interests. Our lessons can resume when you're older, unless... She seemed to be searching for the right word, eventually settling on fragile. Twilight's tail dropped. Misery made her tummy hurt. No more lessons with Celestia? It had only been a few months, but they had been the most wonderful moments of her life, and the idea of going back to the way things used to be before her exam brought her together was inconceivable. Mom? When her mom didn't answer, her head dropped too. Please? It's too dangerous, Twilight, her mother said regretfully. If anything were to happen to you, I don't know what I'd do. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'll be more careful in the future, I promise. The thing is that fish pony, it was my fault, not Princess Celestia's. Please don't do this. I'll do better, I swear. I'll study every day and make sure I'm perfect so nothing like today ever happens again. She blinked. What did happen today? Apparently your special talent for magic is so strong that you hadn't heard the cry of the siren through its barrier, Celestia explained. When you spindled your own magic in the horn and touched it into my spell, you actually managed to cancel out a portion of time and almost broke through the barrier. If I had not interrupted, you would have dispersed my magic entirely, and in that spot, the reality inside the bubble would have merged with ours. Oh, I'm sorry. Do not apologize. You were under the siren's spell and not acting rationally. I have to say that I was astonished by what you accomplished in such a short space of time. I've rarely seen a unicorn with so much raw talent. Celestia glanced at Twilight's mother and looked awkwardly away as if her words hadn't come out right. Her regal bearing wavered out but not crumbled. She raised her head and fixed Twilight with a stern eye. Talent that you should be used in your school studies. You shall remain in the academy student, Twilight Sparkle, and you will use your time there wisely. But you won't be coming to visit me? Twilight asked in a small voice. No. You don't like me anymore? Celestia blinked at her. Oh, Twilight Sparkle, she sighed. You're a prodigy among ponies. So much that I sometimes forget how young you actually are. Of course I like you. You're a very special little filly, and you are destined for a great many special things. Can't you teach them to me? I shall when you're older. For now there are other things you must learn. Why can't you teach them to me now? Twilight's question looked on a winning nasal quality. She was a heartbeat away from stamping her hoof in a tantrum. She restrained herself in front of the princess, but frustration clogged in her throat that made her eyes burn with hot, angry tears. Now you need to make some friends and become the pony who you're meant to be in safety. Twilight sniffed. But I want to be with you. Her mother stepped forward. I think it's time for you to go, honey, your majesty. I think so too. Celestia nodded at them and turned to leave. I shall see myself out, thank you. Twilight Velvet. Study hard, Twilight Sparkle. Princess Celestia! Princess, wait! Twilight broke from her mother's restrained hoof to run after her. Don't go! Twilight! Her mother yelped. Goodbye for now, Twilight Sparkle. Celestia ducked her head under the door frame and closed the door behind her. Twilight whirled on her mother. How could you? She demanded. Twilight, you spoiled everything! Her mother stood taller. Young lady, go to your room. You can stay there until you've calmed down. Fine, I will! She ran for the stairs, but paused at the bottom. Resentment burned inside in her a way that she never had before. Just like her magic, it all blazed up and she couldn't control it once she reached its surface. I wish the Princess Celestia was my mom instead of you. She didn't see her mom's face as she ran upstairs and slammed the bedroom door. Someone opened the door and closed it behind them. Twilight recognized her brother's hoofbeats, but didn't turn over. Hey, Twilight. Aren't you going to come downstairs for dinner? I'm not hungry. Of course, her stomach chose that moment to growl. She shoved her hoof into her torso to make it stop. She was ravenous, but no way she was going downstairs. Well, if you're not hungry, I guess you won't want this slice of carrot cake I brought up. She spun around and was carrying a plate on one upturned hoof. On the slice of it was a cake the size of her head. It made the fork sticking out of it look tiny in comparison. Shining Armor grinned at her wide-eyed wonder. Hey, if you don't want it, can I eat it? Already had my share, but I could manage another. Give it here! Twilight reached out greedily. Nuh-uh! He held it away from her. Use your magic. Levitate it to yourself, and then you can have some. She frowned at him. You know I'm not supposed to. It was a school rule. No authorized use of magic outside of school until you had at least an elementary certificate. It cut down to collateral damage and art injuries, having students practice only on school grounds, where protective wards and charms prevented too much of either or under the watchful eye of teacher off campus. The penalties for being caught breaking the school rules severe unless you had a really good excuse, like training exterior lessons from some pony than an academy teacher. I won't tell if you won't. It was such a thing Shining Armor had to say. I'll even get you started, see? His horn glowed, and as he defiantly lifted up a chunk of the cake, which he brought to his mouth, all the while keeping his gaze on her. Twilight puffed out her cheeks and concentrated. Her horn tingled as the magic flowed into it. She tried to remember what she had been taught about winding the raw energy around her horn like a spinning wheel's spindle, and only using a thread instead of the full amount that she had summoned. The fork full of cake sprangled purple and turned to her direction. She turned back again when Shining Armor willed it. Come on, is that all you got? He actually took another bite of her cake and smacked his lips sporadically. Nom nom. Twilight unspedaled more magic, flung it around the fork like a lasso. She jerked it towards herself and then had to duck it. It flew past and buried itself, prawn first, in the wall above her bed. Cracks spider webbed out from the point of impact. They both looked at the juddering country in alarm. Wow, said Shining Armor. Mom and Dad are going to kill you. Remembering the reason she was in her room was at nowhere close to bedtime. Twilight slumped down in the mattress and flung back her head. So what? He gave her a funny look. You're still mad at Mom, huh? Wouldn't you be? She did what she thought was best, Twilight. How is she not letting me see my teacher for the best? She's just worried about you. Well, she shouldn't be. I could take care of myself. Yeah, Shining Armor cast a meaningful look at the fork. It shows how close you were to being alive today. That was different. No, Twilight, it wasn't. Princess Celestia had all these wonderful plans for stuff she wants to teach and share with you, but Mom's right. You're trying to run before you can walk. You need to learn the stuff they teach you at school first. Make friends with colts and fillies on your own age, and have some fun before you get bogged down in studying all the time. I don't want to make friends with the colts and fillies at school. Twilight pulled the pillow over her head and shouted through it. I want my lessons with Princess Celestia! Man, Twilight, if the ponies at school hear you talking like that, they'll call you a nerd for sure. Not to mention they'll get offended if you reject them right out of the gate without giving them a second chance. I don't care if they think I'm a nerd. In fact, I hope they do think I'm a nerd. That way, they'll leave me alone so I can study in peace and ace every stupid test those stupid teachers come up with so they can't make me do them again 10 times stupid when I know I got it right on the first try. That's pretty short-sighted. I don't care. That's obvious. Well, I don't. Her brother fell silent. After a while, Twilight pulled the pillow away to peer at him. He wore a troubled expression and sighed and sat down next to her bed. Twilight, you've got to be reasonable. Mom's just looking out for you. Yeah, your feelings are hurt and you are upset, but you don't get this out of proportion. It's not like you'll never see Princess Celestia again. Didn't she say that she'd be your tutor when you graduate? Yeah, but that's years away, Twilight whined. So it'll be worth it when you get there. In the meantime, you have to make it best your time at school and not cut off your nose to spite of your face. She frowned. What does that mean? It means don't do something that will hurt you more than any pony else. Her frown deepened. That doesn't make any sense. It does if you think about it. I am thinking about it. It still doesn't make sense. He tuttered. Twilight, forget that part. Concentrate on having fun and enjoying school. Make the most of your time there. Twilight's eyes narrowed. Thoughts that had been niggling around around the edges of her mind like tadpoles started to form into a larger, more solid idea. It hopped into the center of her mind and riveted intensely as she worked out what she was going to do. Okay? Shining Armor blinked in surprise. Okay? Uh-huh. She tucked the pillow back into place and sat up. I'll do that. Cool, he beamed. You see, school is best when you have friends to share it with. Heck, anything is better when you have friends. Yet Twilight shook her head. Oh no, I don't mean that. You don't? His happy expression faltered. Nope. She tossed her mane, jumped on the bed, and went over to her desk. When she passed the academy entrance exam her father had proudly outfitted with a reading lamp, a fiddly set of drawers for keeping stationery, an enchanted automatic quill sharpener, and inkwell built into the corner. Twilight planted her rump and levitated her homework out of the saddlebags. I'm going to make most of my time at school. Okay. Shining Armor came over and peered over her shoulder as she dipped her quill and started to write. I'm going to be the best student they've ever had, so that I can get into Canterlot University, and Princess Celestia can be my teacher again. She burned with this promise, and the hope they lay at the end of it. Twilight, that's not what I meant. Thanks for the cake, but I have work to do. Shining Armor backed away, clearly disappointed. Just clarify, recognizing the steel in his little sister's voice. What about Mom? What about her? She wants you to come downstairs. Resentment sizzled in Twilight's belly. It hadn't gone away. Instead, it pushed itself into a perfectly formed niche inside her, where it would fester and grow for a long time. What could have been just a childish tantrum took shape into a grudge, though she didn't know it. If she went downstairs, she could have fought against it, but she was too accustomed to the anger that her mother had presented her with a portal to wonderful things and let her take the entrance exam and bring Princess Celestia to her life, on to snatch it away again and expect her not to care. She took a quick breath. Tell her I'm studying. Twilight. She stabbed the quill against the paper so hard it left a blot. Grunting in irritation, she had to put it back in the pot and levitated the blotting paper from the roll into the windowsill. When she couldn't levitate more than one thing at once with a pinpoint accuracy, she promised herself that soon as she'll be able to do that all and more. She just had to study hard and devote herself into magic. She didn't look up as Shining Armor opened the door, paused as if waiting for her to say something else, and then closed it behind him. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.